everybody. Welcome to our inaugural episode of the Four-Eyed Game Day show. I'm so excited I can't even get the title right. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards, and with me, I got a bunch of people from Fantasy and Frames and one very special guest from fantasygo.com, as you can see at the bottom of the screen. David, how are you, sir?
Not too bad yourself. Excited. 1 hour till football. Who would have
I know
thought
we are finally here. So much to talk about today. You know, this day, during these shows, we're going to give you a lot of information both on offense and defense. We're going to do some start sits for you. So feel free, whether you're looking on Facebook, on YouTube, or Periscope / Twitter, send us your start sit questions. We'll answer them live on air. And with that, let's just get into some news. You know, we have something very special starting this week, or has been started since last Thursday, which is our Four-Eyed Championships charity tournament. And Ken, why don't you give the folks a little information about that?
All right. So the Four-Eyed Championships, it's 12 teams, it's 4 divisions, it's 48 teams for those who are good with math. We have separated this. We have 4 divisions. We have the Tina Belcher division. We have the Hank Hill division. We have the Hans Mollman division, and the Meg Griffin division. For anybody who is a little bit wondering why those divisions happen, those are all famous cartoon characters who wear glasses. Hence, Fantasy and Frames. Hence, Four-Eyed.
There you go.
Mystery
solved.
Oh, I get it now.
Jeremy
yeah,
just gets
I
it.
didn't
This is
even
good.
know
Good.
I'm in the Hank Hill division. I had no idea.
I am very good at explaining the obvious.
You're Captain Obvious over here.
Yes.
That's good.
David and I are playing each other in week
We
one.
are.
And so
I think you're off to a good start as well, by the way. I just noticed
Nice.
that. That'll change soon.
Anybody who has Clyde Evans-Hilaire.
Or Clyde Edwards-Hilaire.
Edwards-Hilaire.
We're live, by the way, Ken.
We're live, yeah. It's this isn't water, folks. You know.
Anyhow, Ken, when can we expect rankings up there?
So rankings will come out every Wednesday, and everybody will see how they're doing. Playoffs from the 4 divisions are going to be the top 4 winners from each division, and then the top 4 scorers who did not win their division. So it behooves you to play the whole season and to score as many points as possible. So you will get into that coveted top 8 slots for the playoffs.
Absolutely. And for those who are participating, the overall winner, not only will you have all the money generated from our GoFundMe account, which you can find just by Googling GoFundMe and Fantasy and Frames, donated to your charity of choice. You'll also be receiving your trophy that we're going to be giving you courtesy of Trophy Smack. And there it is.
Oh, look at that.
See, Four-Eyed fans, that could be you at the end of the season. So we got a lot of gifts and prizes to give away. Thank you very much for competing in this tournament. I know it's very selfless of you. You're all representing a charity or a charitable cause that, you know, let's face it, nowadays we could use all the charity we can get. And so we thank you for participating, and good luck this week and good luck through the rest of the season. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your commissioners, whether you're emailing them or tweeting them or whatnot. You know, promote this on Facebook yourselves on Facebook. Put this all out there. Let the world know that charitable things do go on in football. There is positivity to talk about in football, and that's what we're all about here at Fantasy and Frames. And with that, let's just get into the content for the show. Now, every week we're going to be going over our top 10 rankings over at fantasyandframes.com. You can find them on our homepage, as well as whenever you're reading an article on the right side of your screen, you will be seeing all of our rankings there for non-PPR, for PPR, and for half PPR, for offense and IDP, as well as defense special teams. So with that, we have a guest joining us. Is it him? It is Mr. Fantasy Triage. We see it back. There he is.
hey, buddy.
Aaron, how's it going?
Happy New Year, everybody.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
What's happening, dude?
What's up?
How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing well. Obviously at work, but I just wanted to wish everyone a happy New Year and good luck today. If you guys are watching, hit me up on Twitter. I will be happy to answer your lineup questions.
Nice. Very cool. Thank you very much for joining us, man. We hope you're safe and sound, and we hope to get you on as soon as you can.
Enjoy the show, guys. Awesome time. Have fun with it.
See you, buddy.
Later, Aaron.
Will do.
Yeah.
That was nice.
Awesome.
That was very nice.
Wear
And for,
masks and wash your hands, people. Do it for Aaron.
And wear a
Exactly.
mask.
And to quote Aaron right now, it is a beautiful day to save some fantasy lives live. So anyhow, getting back to what I was saying. So every week we're going to be going over a top 10 rankings per position group here on fantasyandframes.com, and then giving you our opinions of, who outside the top 10 rankings could have a big week this week, or somebody maybe that we think will have a down week. And then we'll just take it from there. We're, of course, answering all of your questions here on Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope. So let's just get into it. Here are our top 10 rankings. At the quarterback position, we got Lamar Jackson, Dak Prescott, Russell Wilson, Drew Brees, Josh Allen, Matt Ryan, Big Ben Roethlisberger, Cam Newton, Tom Brady, Carson Wentz, David from fantasygo.com. Check out fantasygo.com. Hire us to be your fantasy football analysts over at fantasygo.com. Which is the quarterback that's not on that list that you think has serious upside potential this week?
You may have mentioned him, but Philip Rivers I like against the Jags.
Okay.
He's a guy who's getting undrafted in a lot of leagues. We got to remember him, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, and Big Ben Roethlisberger, one of the very few true pocket passes, especially if you're in a league which doesn't favor rushing much, which is very heavy on passing. I'm a big fan of Rivers. He consistently goes over 4,000 yards. He loves his tight ends, his wide receivers, with a much improved offensive lines and weapons in T.Y. Hilton. I'm a big fan of Rivers this week. So, if you've got him, sitting on your bench and you don't know who to start in quarterback, if you don't have an obvious choice in Mahomes or what have you, I think he's a great plug and play.
And that secondary for the Jaguars is quite porous. This should be a blowout theoretically.
I think, Jorge, we should every week just say, all right, well, here are the top 10. Plus, if we didn't name them, here's the person you can stream against the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Wow. Yeah. Just like tight end for the Arizona Cardinals last year. No, I gotcha.
They had a real 15 minutes of fame. I mean, a few years ago, they were a dumpster fire of a team. Then they became studs, and then they're back to the people we know, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Sorry, any Jags fans listening?
Yeah, no, they made it to the AFC Championship. They were a Blake Bortles pass away from getting that field goal to go to the Super Bowl, but we digress. Jeremy, who do you have as a quarterback? Do you think could have some upside potential this week?
So I'll mention my guy, but before I do, just for the 4-eyed fans out there who listen to us or other late QB proponents, I mean, in that top 10 that Jorge just rattled off for week 1, you've got Josh Allen, who was borderline, later in drafts, Ben Roethlisberger, Cam Newton. I mean, you really have. I was going to write Ben Roethlisberger as my guy to say start this week, but we correctly have him ranked in the top 10 already. Another guy I like, however, who's even still outside of that, is Mr. Tyrod Taylor. Part of this is a little bit of a play of similar to the Jags. I think the Cincinnati Bengals are a team you can generally stream quarterbacks against this year. They're better, and I think the Bengals will be able to keep up with more teams this year with, God willing, AJ Green stays healthy, and with Joe Burrow behind center. I do think you have a more competitive team, but this Tyrod pick is more, I would say, about playing the matchups, playing against a still young and inexperienced Bengals defense, particularly in the secondary. They have some line play that's very good. I know Nate's a fan of some of the line in Cincinnati or Jorge. But I would say, you've got a healthy Keenan Allen. You've got a healthy Hunter Henry. Tyrell Williams may play. I still think that's a game time decision right now, where they're leaning towards he's active.
So Tyrell Williams is actually a Raider, and he's out for the entire year.
That's a good call. How about Mike Williams? What do we think about Mike Williams?
I think he's going to play, but I mean, what's he going to be? I mean, that's probably limited, if anything, realistically.
I say it more in that it's not like we have to worry about in this matchup that there's one guy or two guys. You got Eckler coming out of the backfield too. I think Tyrod can also run. We knew it in Buffalo. I still think he's got it if he needs it. I think Tyrod's a safe high floor play this week.
It's going to be interesting also out of that backfield, seeing if it's Joshua Kelly time, the rookie, or Justin Jackson, who this coaching staff has who they have a lot of faith in. You talk about the Bengals defense, Sean Williams went down at safety, so they got another person stepping up there. So, if Tyrod can throw the ball downfield, and of course the rushing upside, like you said, Jeremy, that's a good one. Nate, you got anybody at quarterback?
I do. Looking at Jared Goff, I know that if you're waiting until Sunday night game, he should be in my top 10, realistically. I think that I can put him up there. The point total there is going to be right around 50 and a half. should be back and forth. He had a great game last year in terms of passing attempts against Dallas. He had 51 pass attempts last year. Not to say that that's going to be the same this year, but there's no reason not to think that with the amount of weapons that he has. And I worry about the run game in LA just a little bit. I don't know how quick they're going to be to give either, Malcolm Brown or Cam Akers or Darrell Henderson or whomever else they want to pull off the street to compete enough shares or enough carries that's not going to put – Goff should have every bit of 40-plus attempts again.
That's a very good point. A quarterback that I am interested in this week that's not in the top 10, who's not Ryan Tannehill. I'm not going to play the homer card and go with Ryan Tannehill this time. It is going to be the counterpart, though, in Denver, and that is Drew Lock. I think he has some sneaky potential, even if Cortland Sutton's out just on passing volume. Not sold on Melvin Gordon this week. He's still nursing that injury. We don't know what to make of this Broncos backfield just yet. I think that the Titans are going to get out to a very big lead and then lean on Derrick Henry. And, I think this is going to be the garbage time Drew Lock show, and we'll see where things go from there. Okay, let's now switch it over to the running back position. Here are our rankings for top 12 half PPR running backs. We got CMC, Zeke, Dalvin Cook, Saquon, Alvin Kamara, which, by the way, congratulations to Cook and Kamara on their new contract. They got Derrick Henry, Austin Eckler, James Conner, Aaron Jones, and Josh Jacobs. Nate, we'll start in reverse with you. Is there a running back outside of the top 10 that you are really excited about this week?
Yeah, actually, until I looked at the rankings a little bit closer, I didn't realize Josh Jacobs was outside of the top 10. He's maybe my top 2 or 3 overall back this week. I love the matchup. Carolina gave up the most points to running backs last year. They didn't improve that much against the run. I don't see a situation that they're going to be passing too often. Jacobs has no concern for touches or nobody competing. I easily see 25-plus carries out of him this week.
Nice. What about you, Jeremy?
So my guy, this is again, remember, fantasy is a week-to-week sport, guys. I know we build our rosters for the best of the season. I like Todd Barnes here chiming in. He is all aboard Nate's type train for Josh Jacobs.
Exactly. It's on board.
So my guy here is someone who you probably got in your last round, or maybe you picked him off of the waiver wires this week. That would be Boston Scott. Obviously, the big opportunity here is Boston Scott is now the RB1 for the Eagles this week. Miles Sanders not even traveling with the team to go down to Washington to play the football team, which I just love reading in the box scores. It's like Eagles versus football team. So
darn right you are.
Yeah, we're going to play a football team apparently.
Yes,
so
you are.
One, fly Eagles fly. One Boston Scott is your number 1 running back on a Doug Peterson offense that has proven that it is just efficient with whatever running back he throws behind that line. 2, speaking of the line, and I love it. Speaking of the line, I think Boston Scott's a really good play in half PPR and PPR leagues. He didn't get as many targets as people think last year, but I do think he's a good receiving back. My concern with this pick and why in a standard, non-PPR league, I'd be a little hesitant is the Eagles line is really banged up today. It's going to be for the whole year. You've lost your starting left tackle. Don't be fooled. Jason Peters is no longer the starting left tackle. He's only there now because Andre Dillard went out for the season. You lost your starting right guard, and today you have lost your starting right tackle as well in Wayne Johnson. That is tough. The Redskins defensive line is no joke. Chase Young, Kerrigan, this is a formidable front seven. The secondary leaves a lot to be desired, which is why I do think Boston Scott is a good PPR and half PPR option today. I think the Redskins make this. All right. Today,
It's our first week. It's okay.
Yeah, I think everybody in the first couple weeks gets a pass on that. We didn't have a preseason to be able to work our way into that.
I at least didn't. All right, the San Diego Redskins are I think going to keep this competitive today, and why I think Boston Scott will get a lot of play on the field. I think Wentz is going to be trying to find someone. He's got Ertz, and obviously Deshaun Jackson for the chance he has some time in the pocket. I don't think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for him to buy time in the pocket today. That's why I like Boston Scott coming out of the backfield. And although obviously in the top 10, Zach Ertz, I think, could be the tight end one this week.
Question, Jeremy. I raise my hand now in case everybody wonders. In true Doug Peterson fashion, are you concerned with Corey Clement having any type of role whatsoever?
Yes, I am, but I think the end of last season, when Miles Sanders was back to health and a top 10 running back, Boston Scott was also at least a top 15, if not, or at the worst, a top 20 running back. So it's a great point, Nate, and I think people that would fade Boston Scott in concern of an RBBC, a running back by committee, Peterson showed that with a good offensive line, and now that's the caveat right now, we don't know. I would be concerned about Clement taking touches away, but I think in terms of overall fantasy points, there's a little risk he takes away from Boston Scott having at least an RB2 worthy game.
Gotcha.
So, David, before I get to you and asking you about a running back that you are not putting a lot of faith in this week, Ken, who's a running back that you're not putting a lot of faith in this week?
Putting a not a lot. Oh, you switched it up on me.
I was going to say, I wasn't prepared for that. Thank God he threw Ken under the bus.
No, wait a minute.
Think really hard. Who's a running back you're not playing this week?
I'm Miles Sanders, yeah.
Devontae Freeman.
Devontae,
I was
like, never going to live that down.
On that one.
Ken will never live that down.
No,
we'll talk about that in 2023.
Yeah,
right. Exactly.
I won't. Yeah.
For those of you who aren't aware, we did a mock draft earlier in May, and I think Marlon Mack got sniped from Ken in the 5th round, and frantically he went Devonta Freeman with his pick, not realizing that Freeman was released back in March. He has not lived that down, nor will he ever live that down.
And Devonta Freeman still hasn't been picked up where I could actually make some sort of case for him, but he's still out there.
So
he hasn't retired yet. Nate.
Yeah,
right.
Okay, yeah.
So, there you go.
So
I'm
sorry.
listening.
Where I'm going to go with running back that I wouldn't trust right now is Kenyon Drake, running back Arizona, playing San Francisco defense that was top 2 last year and didn't lose many people in free agency. So, the Arizona offense in a combo is better this year. Their offensive line can't be any worse than it's been the last couple of years. They picked up DeAndre Hopkins, Kyler Murray in his 2nd year. So there's a lot of weapons on that offense, but I just don't see Kenyon Drake having a breakout game today against San Francisco.
That's a very good point. It's really interesting as we were getting close to a cut deadline for teams to make the 53-man roster. Every news update I saw from Arizona was like, released offensive lineman, released offensive lineman, released offensive lineman. And I'm like, people, this is not the problem you had a year ago. Like, what are you doing? Just put them. We need bodies. Fill the bodies. Fill the line. I'm with you on Kenyon Drake, Ken. The linebacking core, Fred Warner is back. Middle linebacker, those are the hashtag tackle machines.
Mm-hmm.
Quan Alexander's back. He's healthy. He'll be playing on the outside linebacking position. If they run to the outside, Quan Alexander is going to be there. If they run up the middle, Fred Warner is going to be there. And, of course, you got Bosa coming off the edges along with Armstead. I'm not a big fan of Kenyon Drake this week. David, sorry, finally back to you. Who's a running back you're not interested in this week?
Okay, well, the one that I'm not interested in, and I'm going to wait to see Nate's eyes just roll over, is Devin Singletary. A guy who I think they're going to see what they have in Zach Moss this week. I understand. I'm pretty sure they're playing the Jets. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Correct.
That is correct. Yes.
So the Jets are not a defense I'm overly worried about, but that being said, he's going to lose his goal line work, obviously, to Josh Allen, as he always has. Yes, he was efficient in his yards per carry. I think that we're going to see probably 60 to 70 yards out of him, but I just can't see the touchdowns coming. Don't forget, Zach Moss was more impressive as a rusher than he was a pass-catching back in college. So I don't foresee them completely ruling out Zach Moss taking the rushing work too.
Plus, he was having some fumbling issues in training camp too, which can't be good for his his stock right there.
Just quickly, the guy that I did have for my guy outside the top 10 was Philip Lindsay. People are sleeping on him a bit, especially with Melvin Gordon being banged up. I mean, don't forget, Philip Lindsay was a solid RB1, a couple of years back. With Drew Lock there, improved offensive line, I think Philip Lindsay is going to feast a bit, but not to digress.
No, that's a very good point. And, I was looking at his half PPR scoring last year. Look, he didn't do horribly. He was getting you double-digit fantasy points, although we're talking 10s, 11s. We're not talking, 17, 18. But as far as a flex play, I don't know. I'm kind of confused as to why they went after Melvin Gordon. He was solid. Philip Lindsay was. They just needed to upgrade other pieces around that offense, and they did, which you would think would open up more running lanes for Philip Lindsay. But apparently, the Broncos organization felt that bringing in a running back that averages 2.5 yards per carry was worth bringing in on such a lucrative deal for a 2-year contract.
That's the Ron Dane factor, right?
I'm not trusting him because look what happened with Austin Eckler. Austin Eckler now is going in the second round of most fantasy leagues. People are excited about him potentially being a top 5 back, and no mention of Melvin Gordon. So he had the opportunity last year. He was ineffective in his rushing yards. Yes, he's decent on the goal line, but that's about the extent of it with Melvin Gordon. So I think Philip Lindsay is going to steal way more of that backfield share than people think.
Right. Running back that I'm not sold on this week outside the top 10 is Joe Mixon. I know, David, it's a shocker for you knowing that I was a big Joe Mixon proponent for a lot of this offseason. Look, at the end of the day, look at the Chargers. They have Joey Bosa. They got Melvin Ingram on the outside. Nate, who's the new middle linebacker there? The rookie, Kenneth Murray, I believe, right?
Yeah. Yep.
They got Murray. The secondary for the Chargers obviously is a little decimated, especially at strong safety with Derwin James going out. But that front seven, I think, is definitely formidable. And you look at what the Bengals did not do in free agency and during the draft. They didn't address right tackle. Yeah, Noah Williams is coming back, who was their number 1 overall draft pick last year. Not overall, but number 1 draft pick last year at left tackle. When the left tackle position started to get solidified towards the end of last year, that's when you saw Joe Mixon kind of come alive. But that being said, coaches adapt, teams adapt. And when you don't really address the other half of your offensive line, that can't really be good from a running game perspective. So I'm definitely down on Joe Mixon this week. Hope, for the shares I have in Joe Mixon, I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think that's going to be the case in week 1.
For Jorge, question, just so people know, you're not suggesting you bench Joe Mixon, correct?
No, no. I'm not saying that. We'll get to starts and sits in a little bit, either or options. Look, when I say I don't have faith in them, I mean, don't expect you're starting Joe Mixon. You invested a late first-round pick, early second-round pick. Just don't expect these monster 25-point games or more, or 20-point games or more. You're looking at 13, 14 maybe. And that's really going to be more in the PPR and half PPR formats and standard formats or non-PPR formats. Expect a little bit less. So temper your expectations for Joe Mixon this week. All right, Todd Barnes, he has a question for us in PPR. We going James White or Tariq Cohen? David Montgomery is officially back. How back is he? Is he from a groin injury? I don't know. This Lions secondary is kind of banged up right now. I don't know. What do you think? Nate, what are your thoughts? Cohen or James White this week?
It's obvious that if Montgomery wasn't playing, that I would be happy to say Tariq Cohen just because he would get the lion's share of everything. But I got to say James White in this situation, only because I don't know what role David Montgomery is going to have. And great.
Your missus disagrees with you.
She's just waiting for you to say one.
Now, exactly.
Which, by the way, Sherry Markham, you are doing well in Scott Fishbowl.
She is the number 1 overall in all of Scott Fishbowl right now.
See, I'm going to agree with going to agree with your wife there, and I'll tell you why.
Shocker.
Because you mentioned about we don't know what role David Montgomery is going to have. I think we can say that about the Patriots with Cam Newton. We don't know what role Cam Newton's going to have and how much he wants to use James White. That's a risk I don't want to take. If Tom Brady was still there, yes, I would say James White all day long because we know how Tom likes his safety blanket running backs. But Cam Newton is going to be very interesting. He might revert to the Tom Brady role. He might not. We might see the Cam of old. Who knows? So for that reason, I'd rather the safety blanket in Tariq Cohen, knowing that if they're going to be down, there's going to be a lot of passes out of the backfield, especially in full PPR.
I agree with the Tariq Cohen take too, not just because we can lay it on Nate here.
Right.
But I do think I think what David said there is really spot on. Like, look, with week 1, there's so much uncertainty as it is. We didn't see any preseason. You've got a lot of teams with new players, and it's a weird year this year. I think if you're looking to be not risk averse, but you should try and make sure you're getting, who you're playing, right? Like if you're playing Tariq Cohen, you're playing the pass catching back for the Bears. It doesn't matter what the game script is. They've shown they use him everywhere all the time. I don't think, I actually disagree with you, Nate, that if Montgomery's out, that Cohen would get a huge uptick in rushes. I don't think so. I think they're going to keep Cohen in the same role all the time. They just slot in Mike Davis or whatever bruiser they want to be able to put in for Montgomery. So I think you're always.
Who would that be? Cordell Patterson?
I guess. Yeah. Sorry, I said Mike Davis. Sorry. Yeah, I guess it'd be Cordell Patterson. I don't know. I'd be very surprised that they make Tariq Cohen a featured back, given his skill set.
My state really is not a. It's not the fact that I think that he would have more rushing attempts. I think that the game script would then flow more towards a pass-heavy approach. They're going to need that anyway, I think, against Detroit. But that would be my take, because I think he has more involvement in that pass. They're going to set him out wide a little bit more. Are they separated by that much, Cohen and White, realistically? I think they're pretty much – I have them almost neck and neck.
I would just keep a lookout for James White to be sort of put in, with Cam Newton as the quarterback, to be sort of put in the really poor man's Christian McCaffrey role that he had in Carolina, where he was the pass catching back for Newton. So I would be a little weary that maybe just to get used to the offense, Cam Newton might use James White in that role as his emergency dump off if he's maybe going outside and running outside and sees James White out there. So
I guess is Cordell Patterson officially a running back per fantasy football?
So
what a world we live in.
Yeah,
because I saw him in
Cohen
ESPN or something ranked as a running back. I'm like, that's crazy. He's
he
wide
has been
receiver,
taking
right?
snaps with running backs in the training camp. So there's been a lot of talk of like changing his overall designation across platforms to being a running back, wide receiver eligible player.
Let's put it this way: for the people looking who are maybe doing this for the first time, and they're like, "Oh, I could pick somebody up who I can put in multiple positions." That's great. Generally, with the exception of defense, those are people you probably want to stay away from because it means they're not featured in any of those positions. Like Taysom Hill, great, you could put him in as your quarterback. If you do, it's gonna be a rough week.
Mm-hmm. And of course, you would never hear that here at fantasyandframes.com. So head over to fantasyandframes.com and check out our rankings every day. We have weekly rankings starting on Wednesday. You can get all of our rankings there, as well as all of our article content and live streams going forward, which I'll get to a little bit later. I just got a question here on Twitter from BStep76. Carson Wentz or Jared Goff this week? I think the answer is Goff, but does anybody else differ from that, or are we on the same page?
I think Goff by quite a bit.
Yeah, agreed. This is a dangerous. The facts as they keep coming in for Wentz, and we talked about it a little. I know I talked about it earlier on this stream. It's not a good set of facts that's coming into this game against Washington. I dread I say this is a game where you could see Wentz get injured, because that could happen to any player in any game. But this is not looking good. Banged up offensive line, really talented young defensive end. Just danger, Will Robinson.
Yeah, this might be the game where the talk of Chase Young breaking Javon Curse's rookie sack record might start to really take hold. So
wow, referencing the freak Javon Curse. That's haven't heard his name in a long
Also,
time.
former Eagle who did absolutely nothing for us, but
That was a big free agent signing
he was
bust.
also 65 years old when he signed with the Eagles.
yeah, just like Nnamdi Asomugha, and you remember that guy? The super.
Oh yeah,
He's a good I hear he's a good actor.
Another question here we got. This is a PPR question. I think it's kind of interesting. Terry McLaurin or Boston Scott this week in flex, obviously.
That's McLaurin for me all day long. I want the number one, over there in the Washington football team, rather than the risk of Scott. Look, I know everyone's sold on going Boston Scott this week, but I'm not so sure we don't see more Corey Clement. I do think week one they're gonna want to see what they have. We didn't really see Boston Scott have a 3-down role when Sanders was out last year. It was a little bit of a mix, but for me, I'd rather the safety blanket of knowing someone who's probably going to get at least 10 targets rather than Boston Scott, who is going to be game script dependent as well. That's the one thing with running backs. If we saw it on Thursday night with David Johnson when they started going down, they didn't feed him the ball. He only had 5 rushing attempts after halftime, even though he impressed in the first half. So with a wide receiver, whether you're up or down, they typically sling in the ball.
I'm sorry, Ori, just one quick question. Any worry about McLaurin going up against Darius Slay, and where the Redskins don't really have a number 2 wide receiver?
Who, Ken?
Oh, excuse me. The Red Tails. The Red Tails, Red Hawks.
Yes, the Red Wolves. They lost the Red
course,
Wolves, which I don't know where that comes from, but okay.
I think what happens is, we see it every single year. Preseason, we have, analysis paralysis where we overanalyze teams and people start going, "Oh, do I play Michael Thomas because he's going against the top, cornerback?" No, I want the number 1 guy who last year showed massive flashes of brilliance. Yes, Slay's an impressive talent, and I do think it's going to be a little bit tricky, but he's still an elite wide receiver, and I can see him dominating.
Nice. So we got another question from Todd as a Washington fan. Who do I think leads this backfield? I think it's Antonio Gibson's show. He's been hyped up too much this offseason to not get that opportunity. And yes, I understand he didn't have a lot of snaps in college. Great. You know what that means? Less wear and tear. Good for him. So I think he definitely leads the backfield this week. You mentioned David Johnson. David, you mentioned David Johnson and his lack of attempts. Does that really, in the second half, I should say, of Thursday Night Football, does that matter? Like, as long as he's getting total touches, whether it's coming from targets / receptions or rushing attempts, he's still getting volume in that regards. And we look at what he did last year before his injury. He was averaging over 100 scrimmage yards a game. Well, he didn't have 100 yards rushing. He did have 100 yards total. And that's exactly what you saw again this week. I think he even scored more fantasy points than CEH this week. Does that concern you at all, or does that matter to you at all? That he has to have more attempps, or
I mean, obviously they were using him a little bit as a pass catching back when they were down, but I like to see. I think we get more fantasy points out of a running back when they're in a solid lead. And I mean, the perfect case in point of that is the other side of the team, which was the Kansas City Chiefs, feeding their rookie 25 times. I mean, I don't know the last time I saw a rookie get fed the ball that many times. Because they're comfortable, they don't want to wear out their other guys. They just pound the rock. So it does worry me that little bit. If you're on a team where they're constantly trailing, unless you're a superb talent like Saquon Barkley, who's an exception to the rule, it's typically very difficult for a running back to really excel. And Christian McCaffrey.
So, and David Johnson, remember, he left that game too briefly with a potential wrist injury. And so I'm not saying that they didn't lighten up his share just a little bit, but you think maybe they were looking at that? I mean, if you're down and you already have to leave game one, granted, going forward, Duke Johnson left the game, and that might open up even more opportunities. I wasn't big on David Johnson going in, but I'll say one thing is he definitely impressed me, and he looked a lot better than I remember seeing last year's quicksand running. He definitely looked a lot more explosive.
It was a wrist injury that cost him a season a few years ago. I believe, Jeremy, you and I were in a league, and you had picked him. Yep.
Number 1 overall.
Yeah, so that didn't end well. Speaking of Duke Johnson, can we put that to rest finally? Put him to rest as far as him being the best running back, the best DJ in Houston? Like, he looked pretty atrocious on Thursday. Am I right, or am I wrong here?
Nothing really showed me anything that I was impressed with. So
no, totally. Okay. So if there's no more running back talk, let's get into wide receivers, folks. Let's talk into the top 10 wide receivers in half PPR. We got Michael Thomas, Devonta Adams, Julio, Chris Godwin, Juju makes the list, DJ Moore, Adam Thielen, DeAndre Hopkins, Robert Woods, and rounding out the top 10, Terry McLaurin. That could be a stretch for some of you. I'm kind of a huge fan. I think the target volume is going to be there today. He kind of owns Philadelphia in the 2 games, so using the word owned is kind of a stretch, but he's played very well against them. David, I saw you tilt your head there when it came to Terry McLaurin rounding out the top 10. Too much? Too soon?
Look, I'm a fan of McLaurin, but top 10 is a bit of a stretch for me this week. Like you said, he's going up against Darius Slay. I think he's going to do well as a wide receiver too, but you're talking about your solid wide receiver 1 there. a little bit worried if he was my overall number one. But as a wide receiver 2, I think he's got wide receiver 1 upside.
Nate, what are your thoughts on Terry McLaurin being ranked so high?
I like we were talking about earlier, that narrative about being matched up against Slay. I don't think that personally the Washington football team possesses the ball long enough to give him enough target share to be a top 10, but I don't see him too far outside. I mean, it's not like that's a super stretch. Obviously, it's not just a homer pick, and I know that. You take analysis and you do a lot more than just, loving your team. But there's a few guys I think we're going to talk about that I could slide into the top 10. I'd feel more comfortable about personally.
All right, so give us a guy, Nate.
I'll start off with number 1 is Robert Woods.
He is in the top 10.
Robert Woods isn't. Wait, I have him at number 11. Oh, you know what? I apologize to everybody watching. That was, I see it scrolling across. When I look at our website, he is at number 11 on there currently, and it hasn't been changed yet. So that's
so on the website, the players on Thursday night weren't taken out.
Gotcha. Okay,
so they're still on there. So that's why they're still showing.
So
quickly
about Robert Woods.
The disrespect of DeAndre Hopkins, guys. Come on. We're talking about Adam Thielen, Juju Smith-Schuster. Like, this is a guy who's done it with TJ Yates and Brandon Whedon. And I mean, he's now going to Kyler Murray. I'm expecting big things for DeAndre Hopkins. I wouldn't be shocked if he's the overall wide receiver 1 this week.
I just think the defensive matchup is going to be a little bit too much for San Francisco this week, which is, I think, why he was ranked where he was. He has the Sherman matchup this week. I don't know. I'm kind of concerned about his. And not to mention, we think about DeAndre Hopkins in Houston. He was target monster there.
Right.
Is he going to be the target monster in Arizona?
Yeah, I do. I mean, Christian Kirk, this is his 3rd year in the league. And let's be honest, he's not really shown anything that impresses me in the first 2 years. Larry Fitzgerald is a great safety blanket. He's going to be there. He's going to take some targets. Obviously, Kenyon Drake out of the backfield. But, I couldn't even tell you who their number 1 tight end is over there. So I don't see really anyone he's going to target more than one of the greatest wide receivers playing right now.
That's a good point. C. Dalton 62 asked, Juju Smith-Schuster or Robert Woods this week? Jeremy, who are you going with there?
I think that's tough. I mean, honestly, I would say I want to know what the roster construction is here, because I like both guys this week. I think Juju is going. I mean, the Giants secondary is another one where I think all season I'm going to be saying who's playing the Giants secondary. I mean, they're a top 5 up. If you're a top 1 wide receiver most weeks, you've got a chance to smash that week. So I think Juju, it's with a lot of these teams where we go, well, how healthy is the team going to be in the long run? This is your week to bank in on that. Like, I don't know if this guy is going to stay healthy for the year. Week 1's when the healthiest they're going to be. So you've got Big Ben back. You've got James Conner, who's not had half a season of him where he goes in and out like every other quarter. I think the Steelers have a real shot to completely blow out the Giants this week. Sorry, Ken. Which is good. Daniel Jones, potential garbage time, but that Steelers defense is mean. So I like Juju a lot. And Jorge, we were talking about it pre-show. I think the tonight's matchup with the Cowboys and the Rams is a huge shootout potential as well. So Woods is the number 1 target, I still think, on the Rams. Honestly, C. Dalton 62, I don't know who your other option is, but both are real viable flex or wide receiver 2s this week, I think, if not one.
Yeah,
so one thing in a little bit of the Giants' defense, it's not going to be much defense because their secondary is going to be a little bit iffy. The one advantage they have. Well, the one bright spot maybe is that signing James Bradbury from Carolina this year. He'll probably be on Juju for most of the game. They'll probably slide Jabril Peppers over a little often to help him also. So it might take Juju out of the game a little bit, but it might open up for other.
Can I ask Jorge, because I think you might remember this more. Do you remember in Tennessee if Logan Ryan was used as a demo or not so much? I don't remember if that was scheme or his.
I think he was if memory serves me correctly, he was schemed outside. He didn't go into the slot, which going back to what Ken, you were saying, I think on the outside, you're going to see more Deontay Johnson and James Washington, and Juju move back into the slot where he was most successful. So he could get a lot of receptions. If I had to pick C. Dalton 62, I'm going Juju Smith-Schuster. I think this is Big Ben's welcome back party to the NFL, and he's just going to make a statement and target his number one wide receiver early and often.
But Jorge, what about Road Ben? Aren't they playing in New York?
They are.
I'm not worried about road. Well,
Oh no, two things. Can I say? I'll answer my own question. One, not last year, 2 years ago, Road Ben proved that he was not as Road Benny as he had been historically. And also, two, why do we talk about home field being an advantage? Crowd noise, familiarity. Like, it's a weird year, guys. Remember.
Yeah, I was just going to ask how we could judge on at road games when there's going to be nobody in the stands.
Yeah, so there's only one game today that's going to have fans in it, and that's the Jacksonville Indy game, I guess, if I'm not mistaken.
You're correct.
I mean,
yeah.
Wow.
So, David, let me ask you really quickly. Todd asks, Cooper Kupp. Would you put Cooper Kupp ahead of Robert Woods?
Let's be clear. He didn't ask Cooper Kupp. He just said,
exclaimed.
I'm assuming he means, what about Cooper Kupp? Okay.
I have more faith in Cooper Kupp than Robert Woods, just because he's the consistent target. Robert Woods, I feel, gets peppered when they're down, and I can't guarantee the Rams are going to be down this week. But look, we're splitting hairs here when we're talking about Robert Woods or Cooper Kupp, but I think there's more upside in Cooper Kupp. He showed the first half of last year he was an elite wide receiver one, probably top 4 or 5. I understand he fell off a cliff at the end of the year, but I'd rather Cooper Kupp in that regard.
All right. Let's switch over now to the tight end position. And before we do that, folks, all the stats and info that we get here that we use to put together our analysis here at fantasyandframes.com, we get a bulk of it, if not all of it, from fantasydata.com. Definitely recommend you go over to Fantasy Data, sign up for their stats membership, use the promo code FantasyandFrames and get 20% off of your monthly bill. Look, whether you're like us and you want to start your own show or website, or you just want to get the extra advantage over your friends in your home leagues, 20% off your monthly bill. Can't beat that. Use the promo code FantasyandFrames and head over to fantasydata.com today. All right, some tight ends. Let me hide it and then go back so I can read from the beginning. Okay, George Kittle, Mark Andrews, Zach Ertz, Darren Waller, Hunter Henry, Hayden Hurst coming in at 6, followed by Mike Gesicki at 7, Jack Doyle at 8, Tyler Higbee at 9, Evan Ingram at 10. Ken, you're the resident Giant homer. Okay.
Yes.
Do you have faith in Evan Ingram being a Giants fan?
If he's healthy, I have faith in him. That's the problem. My faith in his talent and my faith in his ability to get you points is there. My faith in him making it through the game without something happening to him is, it needs to be reassured over the next couple of weeks. So
he was on pace to be the overall tight end 3 last year had he rode out the season. Yeah. So this guy's an elite talent. And I mean, I understand the injury thing, but that can happen to anyone. Assuming he plays a full season, top 5 is definitely not out of the question for Evan Ingram.
Yeah. Definitely. Actually, in that game, I'm surprisingly, I am going to look for Eric Ebron to perhaps have a big game. The Giants are never good against; they are terrible against opposing teams' tight ends. So I don't see that changing much this year, particularly with a lot of the guys that they brought in. So if you're thinking somebody outside the top 10, I'd look at Eric Ebron.
I agree. Piggybacking on that for Ken, I mean, the hype train coming out of Steelers camp on Eric Ebron was choo-choo levels. It was impressive. They were saying they were using them all over the field. Big Ben historically has had fantasy-relevant tight ends. Last year, everybody was excited about Vance McDonald, and, he put Chris Conte's soul in a box and, ran to the end zone with it. But aside from that, you were like, where did Vance McDonald go? Well, who was throwing him the quarterback for 15 games of the season? So I agree with Ken. I mean, I think for Eric Ebron, he's probably not rostered in 3/4 of leagues. I mean, if you're streaming tight end and you picked up Mike Gesicki, honestly, drop Mike Gesicki and get Eric Ebron this week. I don't think Gesicki has a great game this week, and I think you could probably grab him again. Go get Eric Ebron, smash play.
Hey guys, can I just ask, was this list put together just so you can see my reaction?
Pretty much.
Because I'm looking and you guys misspelled Rob Gronkowski. He's nowhere on this list. It's got to be a typo, right? It's got to be a typo. Are we not believing him? I mean, obviously, you guys know.
Gronkowski truther in the fantasy football community.
You guys know I'm big on.
You think
Gronk
this is a boom week for Gronkowski?
With Mike Evans out,
you think this is a boom week for Gronkowski?
Look, if Gronkowski can't prove it with Mike Evans out this week, then I'm going to be worried going forward. But if he can at least get the targets, then I'll continue my belief. But I definitely think. I mean, I wouldn't put Gesicki over Gronk, to be honest. Some of these guys I would, but Evan Ingram I probably would. This week. But I definitely think Gronk's going to surprise some people this week.
Even with Mike Evans being there, you don't think that's going to be a downgrade for Gronk, or you think Evans is more of a decoy, and they're still going to feature Gronk in the passing game?
So if Evans plays, a best case scenario, he's a decoy. We saw that with Brandon Cooks earlier this week. He was in, he was out, he was in, he was out. He ended the game with 2 catches for 20 yards. And I think we're going to see a similar result with Mike Evans. Yes, he's a fantastic talent, but is he going to be 100%? Clearly not, because we were talking about him being doubtful, a few days ago. So if he's out there, I don't think we're going to see a 12 target, 10 catches for 100 yards and 2 touchdowns Mike Evans that we're used to.
Do we put in you're high on?
Yeah. It's hard to say in a regular season long, but maybe in a DFS format also. I look at Noah Fant, and I'm thinking Noah Fant might have a pretty big role in that offense. If Sutton's out, I don't necessarily. I think Jerry Jeudy is going to be the one that people immediately want to say, but he'll be lined up against Adoree Jackson, I believe. We don't know anything until we watch the game, but I think they can limit that. I don't trust KJ Hamler. I think that targets have to go somewhere. And Jorge, if you're big on Drew Lock, then that means the targets have to go somewhere. And I'm seeing Noah Fant as being the recipient. Again,
I agree.
That's a stretch, but it's somebody to keep an eye on.
I'm definitely a big fan of that. And there is some news that came out, apologizing, 45 minutes ago. Washington running back Bryce Love, a healthy week 1 scratch.
Wow.
Antonio Gibson, I think you know what's going to go on there. So everybody who has Antonio Gibson, maybe slide him into your lineup if you don't have a better option. Jeremy, who do you have as far as a tight end that's outside the top 10 listed here? Or do you not have anybody?
No, I had, Eric Ebron was my guy, and I kind of pumped him up a little bit. I will say, can I come in and pour cold water on somebody? Is that allowed?
Sure.
So, Blake Jarwin. Look, I get it. I get everybody talking about the vacated targets. There's no Jason Witten. He has his chance to finally come out and play. Blake Jarwin already had this opportunity 2 years ago when Jason Witten retired. He was the featured tight end on Dallas. He amassed, and I'm missing the number off the top of my head because I would have prepared this. I want to say he amassed less than 500 yards receiving in the regular season plus postseason. I am just not a believer in Blake Jarwin until I see it. I think that Dallas Cowboys offense is built to be a machine this year. I, as an Eagles fan, really am sad as I see the injuries pile up on our end, and I see Dallas has generally stayed pretty healthy. If you want to say they have the COVID edge in the sense that Zeke already got it, sure. I don't think people should put any stock in that. I've seen that somewhere. I'm like, we don't know enough about that, so let's keep that aside. But I mean, the number of weapons that Dak has this year at his disposal to prove it in his year to get his contract are crazy. And yes, Blake Jarwin is one of them. But if I'm going to play the game of what's more likely to happen, that Michael Gallup breaks out or Blake Jarwin breaks out, I think it's Michael Gallup. And I understand they're not the same position, but if you're talking about target share, I have a hard time seeing Blake Jarwin be a non-streamable plug in your lineup tight end.
I agree. Keep in mind, CeeDee Lamb's there as well. Yeah, in my opinion, the best wide receiver in the draft. Why he landed to the Cowboys, I don't know. But they're going to be feeding him the ball too. So I don't think they're looking Jarwin's way if they see CeeDee Lamb wide open. There's a lot of mouths to feed there. I know it's the old cliche saying. Plus, don't remember, Zeke Elliott is a pass-catching back. So a lot of those little intermediary routes, he's going to take them. He works okay out of the slot, Zeke. So I don't see Jarwin getting that much usage, to your point.
By the way, as a point for that, just that Blake Jarwin season a couple years ago where he was the featured tight end. Most of his stats came in the Week 17 game against the Giants, where he had 119 yards and 3 touchdowns.
Yeah.
His only 3 touchdowns of the season. So
you are such a homer. This is unreal. Anything
I know.
Giants
I'm even
related,
wearing the
I can
Giants
ask you
blue.
only.
But it's helpful. That helped prove my point. So thank you for being a homer, Ken, remembering the Giants Week 17, 2018 season.
Yeah.
Some more breaking news. 49ers are uncertain if running back Tevin Coleman will play today due to a combo of pre-existing health conditions as well as the air quality in the Bay Area. If he doesn't go, obviously it's the Raheem Mostert show.
Yeah, I don't know.
I think it was going to be the Raheem Mostert show for most of it anyway, I think.
Who would have thought we'd be talking about San Francisco about the worst air quality in California and not Los Angeles?
Yeah.
Crazy world we're living in.
So let's round out with some IDP. Nate, a lot of these names on here, a lot of tackle volume. We looked at Schobert, Martinez, Wagner, Leonard, Shaq Thompson. I'm a big Shaq Thompson person this week. He's taking over for Luke Kuechly in that middle linebacker spot. The tackle volume is going to be there. He showed some good growth at that position last year. I think the opportunity is here for him going against a rushing attack like the Oakland Raiders, where Josh Jacobs is a straight ahead running back. He's not going to catch any passes out of the backfield, despite all the rumors that he wants to get 60. I doubt that that's going to happen. I think this is a great opportunity for Shaq Thompson. Any name here jump out at you?
Jumps out at me. No, I mean, I think you have the one person pretty much picked exactly right. Is I think Joe Schobert will be the number one, and I think that's just a testament to the amount of running volume that we're going to see out of Indy, which takes me back to one thing also is I picked Marlon Mack earlier to be on Dave's good side and say that's who I thought was going to have a good week, and here he goes and kicks Devin Singletary when he's down, and I can't make friends for nothing. But
I know. We'll close.
A person outside of the top 10 who we were talking about earlier that you have to go pretty far down in that I think Sam Hubbard might actually be a very intriguing play this week. We mentioned Mike Pouncey being out. If your center's out, I just tells me that they're going to have to bring extra attention to the inside to help protect that. Leaving him one-on-one on the outside is dangerous. I could see a 2.5 sack game out of him this week. Clairvoyance isn't my strong point, but it's something. It's a name that I keep seeing, and I think that I have him against you, David, this week. So that's always an extra bonus for me.
Well, speaking of which, with IDP, guys, I'm not a IDP professional by any stretch of the imagination. Clinton Dix. What happened there? I mean, did he just get cut because of poor performance, or is it injury related?
I want to say he just was poor performance. There's a reason why Green Bay shipped him to Washington and why Washington didn't bring him back, which tells you all you need to know, right? And he goes to Chicago last year, if memory serves. Then he reunited with McCarthy in Dallas. And I just think he's on the decline. He had a few good years, and that's that. Leighton Vander Esch at 9. Now, a lot of people or Cowboys fans, would say, oh, it's Jalen Smith. Jalen Smith had such a great year last year. Jalen Smith had a great year at middle linebacker last year. Jalen Smith is not the middle linebacker in Dallas anymore. It's Leighton Vander Esch. As long as that's the case, give me the hashtag tackle machines. I'm not saying Jalen Smith isn't worthy of it. In fact, he's probably right outside the top 10 in most rankings. But the middle linebacker position is gold in IDP. So definitely going Leighton Vander Esch. And rounding out at 10, Jamal Adams. The only thing here with Jamal Adams, and Nate, you and I were talking about this on our other podcast, the Fantasy Playbook, brought to you by Fantasy Data, which go and subscribe and listen to that. We were talking about how he was used in New York may not be how he is used in Seattle, and that Seattle didn't really require a lot of their safeties to get up closer to the line of scrimmage and get that high tackle volume. They normally just played in their cover 2 roles in the back, whereas in New York, he was all over the field. They trusted him to be the playmaker. That may be not the case in Seattle, but given his talent, given what he has shown in the past, it's kind of hard to leave him out of the top 10, don't you think?
Yeah, I do. And especially this matchup this week is even if he's staying back in that cover 2, the pass volume should be at an all-time high against him this year. And he has an opportunity to pick off a couple balls, at least some pass defenses. I think you have him ranked exactly probably where he should go.
All right. And so now rounding out each week, as we will do here at Fantasy and Frames, and also justifying my mini helmet collection that my wife just loves me spending money on. I'm going to give you some mini helmet picks of the week, guaranteed to give you a winner, quote unquote guaranteed. First, we got the Green Bay Packers. I think they beat the Minnesota Vikings pretty handedly. My wife will love this. Dallas Cowboys over the Los Angeles Rams this week. Give me, obviously, the Buffalo. I guess it's not obvious, or maybe it is. The Buffalo Bills over the New York Jets.
Led Buffalo
What's
Bills.
that?
Devin Singletary led Buffalo Bills.
Yeah, there
You mean
go.
Zach Moss, right?
Just watch.
By the way,
debate
as an
continues.
IDP, look for Tremaine Edmonds to have a huge game.
There you go, Ken. I like
Very
that one right there. And of course, the 49ers in their wasteland of an atmosphere over the Arizona Cardinals. I say that, and I feel really bad about the people who are suffering over in California with the fires. We hope that you all are safe and sound. That are watching over there. We are thinking about you. And with that, that wraps up the Four-Eyed pregame show. Thank you very much for watching in week one. Just to give you an update as far as what you'll see here at Fantasy and Frames. Tonight, we're going to be live streaming a short little mini recap show of today's events. Tomorrow, you can catch our waiver wire show tomorrow night. Wednesdays, we've had Behind the Frames, our weekly web episode live streaming show on Wednesdays. We're replacing that with a start sit show. And then hopefully coming up soon on Fridays, we'll have a DFS show for you to watch. So head over to Fantasy and Frames, watch all of our content, go to Facebook, YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. We need to get some love on YouTube. Watch all of our content there, read all of our content. We're pumping out at least 5-6 articles a week, 5-6 live stream shows a week. And we're doing this because we love fantasy football. We want to get you a fantasy football championship, or as we call them, Four-Eyed championships. And so for David from fantasygo.com, head over to Fantasy Go. Remember, you can hire us to help run your fantasy football team. For Nate Markham, for Ken Sonnenberg, for Jeremy Noble, I'm Jorge Edwards. Thank you very much. We'll catch you next week.